Millionaire CEO abandoned pregnant wife with $50 while he's abroad. When he came back, he froze. Are you going away again? Bobby Williams looked down at his 6-year-old son, and something inside his chest cracked open. The boy's eyes, amber brown and painfully familiar, held the kind of suspicion that should never exist in a child so young. Behind Marcus, his twin sister Maya clutched a painting she had been working on all evening. A knight riding away from a castle, dark clouds gathering on the horizon. I might have to take a short trip, Bobby said carefully, watching both children process this information. That is what you said before, Maya whispered. In Mama's story, the knight said he would come back, but he never did. Angela stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. But Bobby could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. 7 years ago, he had missed these signs. He had been too consumed with his own ambition to notice the woman he loved preparing to tell him something that would have changed everything. Now he noticed everything, and what he saw in her eyes was fear dressed up as anger. Bobby, Victoria's voice crackled through the phone he had silenced but not ended. The plane leaves in 3 hours. This is exactly like before. The company needs its founder. Are you coming or not? He looked at the phone, then at his children, then at the woman who had rebuilt herself from the ashes of his abandonment and created something more beautiful than anything his billions could buy. This is the moment that will define everything. But before I show you what Bobby chooses, you need to understand how we got here. How a man worth $900 million ended up being the poorest person in any room his family occupied. How a woman with $50 and a pregnancy became one of Chicago's most celebrated philanthropists. And how 2 children who never knew their father became the bridge between destruction and redemption. This story will break your heart, but I promise you, it will also put it back together. 7 years earlier, Bobby Williams had walked out of a tiny apartment in Chicago, leaving behind a sleeping woman, a hastily written note, and exactly $50 in their shared bank account. He told himself he was building a future. He told himself she would understand. He told himself he would call once he landed in Europe, explain everything, make arrangements to bring her over once he was established. He told himself a lot of things. None of them turned out to be true. What Bobby did not know, what he would not discover for 7 agonizing years, was that Angela was pregnant. Not with 1 child, but with 2. Twins who would grow up hearing stories about the father who flew away and forgot to come back. Twins who would learn to read their mother's face for signs of pain whenever the subject arose. Twins who would build entire fantasy worlds where absent parents were replaced by loyalty and magic, and the fierce protection of those who stayed. When Bobby finally returned to Chicago, he expected to find ruins. Instead, he found a kingdom. The Meridian Grand Hotel ballroom sparkled with the kind of wealth that most people only witness through magazine covers and social media feeds. 500 of Chicago's most influential citizens had gathered for the annual Philanthropic Excellence Awards, a night where fortunes were celebrated and legacies were forged in crystal and champagne. Bobby stood near the entrance, his $4,000 Brioni suit suddenly feeling inadequate. 7 years abroad had changed him in ways that money could not reverse. Silver threaded through his dark hair now. Lines had formed around his eyes, evidence of sleepless nights and decisions that weighed more than any profit margin could justify. He had built a tech empire spanning 3 continents. He had accumulated a net worth that most people could not comprehend. He had achieved every goal he had set for himself on that plane ride away from everything that mattered. And yet, standing in this ballroom, in the city he had fled, Bobby Williams felt like nothing more than a ghost returning to haunt his own grave. A business associate had convinced him to attend. Networking opportunity, Robert had said. Chicago's elite, all in one room. You have been back in the country for 3 months. Time to reestablish your presence. Bobby had agreed, because agreeing was easier than explaining why the thought of this city made him feel like he was drowning. Easier than admitting he'd been circling this moment for months, getting closer but never quite arriving. Easier than confronting the truth that his return to America had nothing to do with business and everything to do with the woman he had left behind. He told himself he was just curious, just checking in, just making sure she had survived. He never imagined she would have thrived. The announcement came through the speakers, cutting through the ambient chatter of wealth discussing wealth. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome this year's recipient of the Philanthropic Excellence Award for her groundbreaking work with the Rise Foundation, providing housing, education, and business opportunities to abandoned mothers across the Midwest. Angela Johnson. Bobby's champagne glass nearly slipped from his fingers. The crowd erupted into applause, but Bobby heard none of it. His entire world had narrowed to a single point of focus. A woman ascending the stage. A woman he had not seen in 7 years. A woman who bore almost no resemblance to the person he remembered. The Angela he had left behind wore second-hand dresses and worked double shifts. She had been soft in ways that made him feel protective, hopeful in ways that made him feel invincible. She had believed in him when no one else did, had sacrificed her own dreams to make room for his ambitions, had loved him with the kind of completeness that he had taken entirely for granted. The Angela on that stage wore a crimson Valentino gown that probably cost more than the apartment they had once shared. Her dark hair cascaded over her shoulders in waves that caught the light like liquid obsidian. She moved with the confidence of someone who had conquered mountains and was not impressed by anyone else's hills. She was magnificent. She was terrifying. She was everything he had destroyed, and everything that had risen from those ashes. But it was not Angela who made Bobby grip the nearest table for support. It was the 2 children walking beside her. A boy and a girl, maybe 6 years old, dressed impeccably, helping her onto the stage with the kind of protective pride that children show when they understand their parent is important. They had his eyes. Both of them. The same amber brown that had stared back at Bobby from mirrors his entire life. The room seemed to tilt. Bobby's vision blurred at the edges. Mathematics he had avoided for 7 years suddenly became unavoidable. If the children were 6 years old, that meant they were born approximately 7 months after he left, which meant Angela had been pregnant when he walked out that door, which meant she had discovered her pregnancy alone, with $50 and an empty apartment and a note that promised nothing, which meant he had missed everything. Angela reached the podium, and when she smiled at the crowd, it was with the serene power of someone who had survived the unsurvivable. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of hard-won wisdom. 7 years ago, I was alone, pregnant, and had exactly $50 to my name. Bobby felt each word like a physical blow. The man I loved, the man I had built my life around, had left me with nothing but a note and a promise to return that never materialized. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Sympathy, admiration, the kind of reaction that accompanies stories of triumph over tragedy. I could have let that break me. Many people expected it would. My circumstances suggested I should collapse, give up, accept that my story was over before it really began. Angela paused, and her gaze swept across the ballroom. For one heart-stopping moment, Bobby could have sworn her eyes landed directly on him. But then she continued, her expression unchanged. But I discovered something in that darkness. I discovered that the person I thought I needed was actually standing in the way of the person I could become. So I became her. I built a foundation from nothing. I raised 2 children alone. I created a life that no one could take from me. And then I built an organization to help other women discover the same truth. The applause was thunderous. Bobby watched as Angela accepted her award, as she posed for photographs with the twins, as she navigated the crowd of admirers with the easy grace of someone who belonged exactly where she was. He should leave. Every rational thought in his head screamed that he should turn around, walk out of this ballroom, and never look back. He had made his choice 7 years ago. He had lived with the consequences, or at least with a carefully constructed ignorance that allowed him to avoid most of those consequences. He had no right to insert himself back into a life that had clearly flourished without him. But his feet moved toward her anyway. The crowd parted as he approached. Some people recognized him. Bobby Williams, the tech billionaire who had built his empire in Europe and recently returned to American soil. Others did not know his name but sensed the electricity crackling in the air between 2 people who had unfinished business written across their histories. Angela saw him coming. Bobby watched her register his presence, watched the brief flicker of something cross her face. Shock, pain, rage, all 3 emotions, cycling through in the span of a single heartbeat before her expression settled into the kind of controlled neutrality that told him everything about who she had become. Bobby. His name in her mouth sounded like both a greeting and an accusation. Angela. He could barely get the word out past the tightness in his throat. Every speech he had rehearsed in the shower, every explanation he had crafted during sleepless nights, every apology he had imagined delivering, all of it evaporated, leaving him with nothing but the inadequate truth. First you look. He trailed off, unable to find words that did not sound ridiculous. Different? Angela supplied, her voice cool enough to frost glass. Successful? Alive? All things that apparently surprised you, given you left me to die in that apartment with $50 and a growing baby. 2 babies, a small voice corrected. Bobby looked down. The boy stood beside Angela, his posture protective, his expression carrying an analytical edge that felt disturbingly familiar. He was looking at Bobby the way Bobby looked at balance sheets, assessing, calculating, searching for weaknesses. There were 2 of us, the boy continued. Mama says we were a surprise. Angela's hand rested on her son's shoulder, a gesture that was both comforting and warning. This is Marcus. And this is Maya. She indicated the girl, who stood slightly behind her brother, clutching something that looked like a small sketchbook. Maya had her mother's face but her father's eyes, and the combination was startling in its beauty. They are 6 years old, Angela continued, each word precisely aimed. Born March 3rd, 7 months after you walked out. The mathematics Bobby had been avoiding slammed into him with full force. Twins. He had twins. 2 children who had lived entire lives while he built empires on the other side of the world. 2 children who had spoken their first words to someone other than him, who had taken their first steps without his steadying hands, who had experienced first days of school and scraped knees and nightmares and birthday candles, all without ever knowing the man whose genetics they carried. I did not know, Bobby whispered. Even as he said it, he knew how pathetic it sounded, how utterly inadequate as an explanation or an excuse. No, Angela agreed. You did not, because you never called, never wrote, never gave me any way to contact you. You simply vanished, leaving a pregnant woman alone with nothing but your apology and your absence. The words hung in the air between them, sharp enough to draw blood. Maya tugged at Angela's gown, her small face troubled. Mama, who is this man? Why does he look sad? Angela's expression softened, but only when she looked at her daughter. The transformation was striking, ice to warmth in the space of a shifted gaze. This is someone Mama knew a long time ago, she said gently. Someone who made choices that hurt people. Marcus had not stopped studying Bobby. His eyes narrowed slightly, and when he spoke, his voice carried the certainty of a child who had grown up solving puzzles. Is he the one from the story? The one who flew away and forgot to come back? Bobby's heart did not just break. It shattered into pieces so small he was not sure it could ever be reassembled. So simple, so devastating in its accuracy. He was the villain in his own children's bedtime stories. The cautionary tale about people who prioritized the wrong things. The absent father reduced to a fairy tale warning. Children, Angela said, her voice still gentle but carrying an undercurrent of authority. Why don't you go find Aunt Diana at our table? I need to have an adult conversation. The twins looked at each other, some silent communication passing between them that only siblings share. Then they looked back at Bobby, and he saw in their young faces the same assessment Angela must be making. Was he worth the disruption? Was he worth the risk? Marcus nodded once, slowly, then turned to leave. But Maya lingered a moment longer, her large eyes fixed on Bobby's face. You made Mama cry, she said quietly. In the old days, before we were born. She does not think I know, but I heard her talking to Aunt Diana once. Then she too was gone, disappearing into the crowd with her brother, leaving Bobby alone with the woman he had destroyed and the weight of years he could not reclaim. They are beautiful, Bobby said when the children were out of earshot, grasping for any words that might bridge the chasm between them. They look just like you, Angela interrupted, and her voice carried an edge that could cut through steel. I noticed. Every day for 6 years I have looked at their faces and seen the man who abandoned me. Every day I have had to separate my love for them from my pain over you. So forgive me if I am not particularly moved by your observation of the obvious. Angela, please, just let me explain. Explain what? Her question was a trap, and they both knew it. But Bobby walked into it anyway because he had no other choice. Explain why you left a note saying your company was relocating overseas and you needed to focus on building your future? Explain why you transferred $50 into my account like I was some kind of transaction you were closing out. Explain why 7 years of silence seemed like appropriate behavior toward the woman carrying your children. Her voice never rose. Her expression never cracked. That was somehow worse than if she had screamed. This controlled devastation spoke of years of processing, of therapy and journaling and countless nights rebuilding herself from the ruins he had created. I was wrong, Bobby said. I was selfish and scared and... Stop. Angela held up her hand, and Bobby's words died in his throat. I do not want your explanations right now. Not here, surrounded by people who admire the woman I have become. If you want to have this conversation, it will be on my terms, on my schedule, in a place where my children are not watching their mother confront her greatest trauma. She reached into her clutch and withdrew a business card. Sleek, professional. The Rise Foundation logo embossed in elegant script, with her name and direct line printed below. Call my office tomorrow. We will arrange something. She pressed the card into his hand, and the brief contact of her fingers against his palm sent electricity through Bobby's entire body. 7 years, and his nervous system still responded to her like she was the answer to questions he did not know how to ask. But Bobby, Angela continued, and her voice dropped to something almost intimate in its intensity. Understand this clearly. Any conversation we have is for the sake of those children, not for you. You have no rights here. You have no claims. You have only what I choose to give you, and right now, I am choosing to give you a chance to not make this worse than you already have. She turned and walked away before he could respond. Bobby watched her rejoin the twins at a table surrounded by people who clearly loved and respected her. He watched her laugh at something Maya said, watched her praise Marcus for sitting so nicely during the boring adult speeches. He watched her move through her life with the ease of someone who had built exactly the existence she wanted. The contrast to the woman he had left was staggering. That Angela had been working 2 jobs to support them both, while Bobby tried to launch his startup. She had been the one making sacrifices, cutting her own dreams smaller to make room for his ambitions, believing that their shared future would eventually justify the present inequity. When his company had been acquired by a European tech giant on the condition that he relocate immediately and indefinitely, Bobby had convinced himself that leaving her behind was actually a kindness. She would slow you down, his business partner Victoria had whispered. You can send for her later, once you are established. Later had never come. Weeks had become months. Months had become years, and Bobby had buried himself in work, telling himself that distance was necessary, that he was building something that would eventually justify the sacrifice. By the time he had looked up from his spreadsheets and international deals, so much time had passed that reaching out had seemed impossible. She probably moved on, he had told himself. She is better off without you, he had rationalized. Contacting her now would only cause more pain, he had reasoned. All lies. Convenient, comfortable lies that allowed him to avoid the consequences of his cowardice. And now here she was, not destroyed by his abandonment, but forged by it, transformed into something stronger and more beautiful than anything he could have imagined. He would call tomorrow, whatever she required, whatever it took, because now that he had seen them, now that he knew they existed, Bobby understood that his children were the only legacy that mattered, the only empire worth building, the only future that meant anything at all. Before I continue with what happens when Bobby finally sits across from Angela and tries to explain the inexplicable, I need to pause and speak directly to you. If you have ever been abandoned by someone you trusted, if you have ever been the one who left and lived to regret it, if you have ever wondered whether people can truly change or whether some mistakes are permanent, this story is for you. I need you to do something for me right now. Hit that like button, not for me, but for yourself, as a commitment to watching this story through to the end. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that rock bottom can become a launching pad. And subscribe to this channel if you have not already, because trust me, what happens next will test everything you think you know about forgiveness and redemption. Now, let me take you back, 7 years before that ballroom confrontation, to the night everything fell apart. The acquisition call came at 3 in the morning. Bobby sat up in bed, immediately alert despite the hour. Beside him, Angela stirred but did not wake. She had worked a double shift at the community center and then picked up 4 hours at the restaurant where she waitressed on weekends. She was exhausted in ways that Bobby, consumed with his startup, rarely noticed. Mr. Williams, the voice on the phone said, "This is Heinrich Brenner from Nexus Technologies. We have reviewed your company's portfolio and we are prepared to make an offer." Bobby's heart began to pound. Nexus Technologies was one of the largest tech conglomerates in Europe. An acquisition by them would mean everything: vindication, success, the validation he had been chasing since he was a kid with big dreams and empty pockets. "The offer is contingent on several conditions," Heinrich continued. "Most importantly, you must relocate to our Munich headquarters immediately. We need you personally overseeing the integration. The plane leaves at noon today." Today? Bobby looked at the clock. 9 hours. He had 9 hours to pack up his life and fly across an ocean. If you are not on that plane, The offer is rescinded. We have other acquisition targets, Mr. Williams. This opportunity will not wait. The call ended, leaving Bobby sitting in darkness, his mind racing through calculations and contingencies. He tried to wake Angela. He really did. He shook her shoulder gently, called her name, watched her eyelids flutter without fully opening. But she was so deeply asleep, so thoroughly depleted by the double life she was living to support his dreams that she barely stirred. Bobby told himself it was kinder to let her sleep. He would call once he landed. He would explain everything. They would figure out how to make it work from a distance. Long-distance relationships were difficult, but not impossible. And once he was established, once the acquisition was complete and his position was secure, he would send for her. He wrote a note on a piece of scrap paper. Something about an emergency business trip. Something about calling soon. Something about this being the opportunity they had been waiting for. He checked their shared bank account. After rent and utilities and the credit card payment that was already past due, there was $63 remaining. Bobby transferred $50 of it to the account, keeping $13 for himself, for coffee on the way to the airport. He looked back once before he left. Angela's sleeping form under the thin blanket they had bought at a thrift store 3 years ago. Her dark hair spread across the pillow. Her face peaceful in a way it rarely was when she was awake and worrying about bills and futures and all the things Bobby was supposed to be handling but was not. Something in his chest twisted. Some warning signal that his conscious mind refused to acknowledge. He ignored it. He walked out. He closed the door. That door closing was the loudest silence of his life. Angela woke to an empty apartment. At first, she did not register the absence. She was used to Bobby getting up early, working on his startup before his day job started. She stretched, winced at the ache in her lower back that had been bothering her lately, and called his name. No answer. She got out of bed, checked the bathroom, checked the kitchen. The apartment was small enough that this took approximately 30 seconds. Bobby? Still nothing. That was when she saw the note on the kitchen counter. Hastily written. His handwriting, but messier than usual. She picked it up, read it once, then read it again, certain she was misunderstanding. Emergency business trip. Company acquired. Have to go to Munich. Will call soon. This is our future, Angela. Trust me. Love you. She called his phone. It went straight to voicemail. She called again. Same result. She sent a text. Then another. Then 5 more. No response. Angela sank onto the kitchen floor, the linoleum cold against her bare legs, the note crumpled in her fist. She sat there for what felt like hours, trying to make the words mean something other than what they clearly said. He left. He really left. Without waking her. Without a real goodbye. Without any indication of when he would return or how she could reach him. That was when she remembered the pregnancy test. She had bought it 3 days ago, along with 2 backup tests, because she needed to be absolutely certain before she told Bobby. They were hidden in her dresser drawer, wrapped in a sock like contraband. She had been planning to tell him that evening. She had rehearsed the words 100 times. She had imagined his face, the shock transforming into joy, the way he would pick her up and spin her around and promise her that everything was going to be okay. Now, there was no one to tell. Angela made herself take the test. Then, the backup tests. She sat on the bathroom floor, staring at 3 positive results, and felt the world tilt sideways. She was pregnant. She was alone. And according to their bank account, which she checked on her phone with trembling fingers, she had exactly $50 to her name. Bobby had transferred everything else into an account she could not access before he left. The next weeks were the worst of Angela's life. She called Bobby's phone obsessively, always voicemail. She left messages. Desperate at first, then angry, then pleading, then resigned. She sent emails to every address she could find for him. Nothing came back except automated responses. She tried to find information about the acquisition. A small article in a tech blog confirmed that Bobby's company had been purchased by Nexus Technologies. A photo showed him shaking hands with executives in Munich, smiling like a man who had just won the lottery. He was living his dream. Without her, Angela could not afford the apartment on her own. Her double shifts were barely enough to cover her share of expenses when Bobby was contributing. Now, with a baby on the way and no partner to help, the mathematics of survival became brutal. She lasted 6 weeks before she had to move out. Diana, a woman she had met at the community center where she worked, offered her a couch. Diana had been through something similar, left by a husband who decided fatherhood was inconvenient. She recognized the hollow look in Angela's eyes. "You are going to be okay," Diana said on that first night, as Angela lay awake staring at an unfamiliar ceiling. "I know it does not feel like it, but you are stronger than you know." Angela did not believe her, but she did not have the energy to argue. The pregnancy was difficult. Carrying twins, she learned during her first ultrasound at a free clinic, when her body was already stressed from overwork and underfeeding. The doctor warned her to rest. Angela laughed bitterly at the suggestion. Rest was a luxury for people with savings accounts and support systems. She gave birth alone in a county hospital, Diana holding one hand while a nurse held the other. 14 hours of labor. 2 babies born minutes apart. A boy she named Marcus for strength. A girl she named Maya for hope. When the nurse placed them in her arms for the first time, Angela looked at their tiny faces and saw Bobby staring back at her. The same amber brown eyes. The same stubborn set to their mouths. The same expressions that would later reveal themselves in identical furrows between their brows when they concentrated. She could have let that break her. She could have seen his features in their faces every day and let bitterness poison everything. Instead, she made a choice. These were her children, hers alone. She would love them without condition or reservation. She would give them everything she had. And she would build a life that proved she never needed Bobby Williams to begin with. That choice, made in a hospital bed while still recovering from childbirth, was the foundation of everything that came after. The first year was survival, government assistance, shared housing, Diana's endless support. Angela learned to function on 4 hours of sleep, to stretch meals impossibly thin, to find resources in places she never knew existed. The second year was education. Online courses taken at 2 in the morning while the babies slept. Business fundamentals, nonprofit management, grant writing. Angela discovered she had a talent for understanding systems and finding gaps where help was needed. The third year was creation. The consulting business she started from Diana's kitchen table, helping other struggling mothers navigate the bureaucratic maze of assistance programs. Word spread. Clients grew. Other women recognized something in Angela's story that gave them hope. By year 4, the consulting business had become the Rise Foundation. Proper offices, staff, a mission statement that reflected everything Angela had learned in her darkest moments. The foundation provided housing assistance, job training, childcare resources, and business mentorship to single mothers rebuilding their lives. By year 7, Angela had offices in 3 cities, a staff of 42, and a net worth of $40 million. Built entirely from nothing. Built entirely alone. She had become the thing she needed most when she was broken, and Bobby had missed all of it. The meeting happened 3 days after the gala. Angela had insisted on her territory, her timeline, her rules. Bobby arrived at the Rise Foundation headquarters 15 minutes early, his nerves making it impossible to wait anywhere else. The building itself was a testament to what Angela had achieved. 3 floors of offices, conference rooms, and resource centers. Modern architecture with warm touches. Everywhere he looked, Bobby saw evidence of lives being rebuilt, women moving through the halls with purpose, children playing in supervised areas while their mothers attended workshops or interviews, a sense of hope that was almost tangible. This was what Angela had built from $50 in abandonment. Bobby felt smaller than he had ever felt in his life. The receptionist led him to a conference room on the 3rd floor. Glass walls looked out over the Chicago skyline. A long table dominated the space. And at the far end, Angela waited. She wore a tailored navy suit that projected authority without ostentation. Her hair was pulled back in a practical bun. Her expression was carefully neutral, revealing nothing of what she might be feeling. She was not alone. A woman sat beside her, and Bobby recognized her immediately from the gala. Diana, Angela's business partner and best friend. The one the twins had been sent to find. The one who had witnessed Angela's pain firsthand and clearly had zero patience for the man who caused it. "Thank you for coming," Angela said. Her tone was professional, clipped, the same voice she probably used in board meetings. Bobby took a seat across from them, suddenly aware that this felt less like a personal conversation and more like an interrogation. "I want to be clear about the purpose of this meeting," Angela continued. "The children have been asking questions since the gala. They are old enough to deserve answers. We need to discuss how and if you will be part of their lives." Bobby leaned forward, desperation bleeding through his carefully maintained composure. "I want to be, more than anything. I want to know them, to be their father, to make up for the time I have lost." Diana made a sound that was not quite a scoff, but definitely was not agreement. "You cannot make up for lost time," she said, her voice carrying the edge of someone who had watched Angela cry too many times to have patience for easy promises. "You can only try not to lose more of it." Angela nodded. "She is right. There is no rewind button here, Bobby. Marcus and Maya have lived full lives without you. They have routines, schools, friends, a home. They have a mother who has been both parents for 6 years. You do not get to walk in and disrupt that because your conscience finally caught up with you." Bobby absorbed the words, knowing they were fair even as they cut deep. "I understand," he said. "I will do whatever you need. Follow whatever rules you set. I just want the chance to know them." Angela studied him for a long moment. Her expression gave nothing away, but Bobby could feel her assessing, calculating, weighing probabilities the way she had probably learned to weigh everything in the years since he left. "Why now?" she asked finally. "You have been back in the country for 3 months. I know because I track things like that now. A habit I developed when having information meant survival. Why wait until the gala to make your presence known? Why not reach out sooner?" It was a fair question. Bobby had asked it himself 100 times. "I was afraid," he admitted, the words coming out rougher than he intended. "Afraid of what I would find. Afraid you would be broken and I would have to face that I had done that to you. Afraid you would be exactly as I left you and I would have to confront that I had wasted 7 years for nothing." He paused, swallowing hard. "I never imagined you would be this. Successful, powerful, complete without me. That is harder to face than I expected." Angela's expression flickered. Something that might have been satisfaction, or might have been old pain resurfacing. "Because it proves you were not necessary." Bobby met her eyes directly. "Because it proves I was a fool. I left behind the best thing in my life because I thought I needed to choose between love and success. You proved that was a false choice. You built both, alone, while raising 2 children I did not even know existed." The silence stretched between them. Diana glanced at Angela, some wordless communication passing between women who had weathered storms together. "Tell me about that night," Angela said finally. "The night you left. I want to understand what happened in your mind that made leaving seem acceptable." Bobby closed his eyes briefly, the memory as sharp as if it had happened yesterday instead of 7 years ago. "The acquisition came through at 3 in the morning. The European company wanted me on a plane by noon. They said if I was not there to close the deal personally, they would pull out. My company's survival, my employees' livelihoods, everything hung on that meeting." He opened his eyes, forcing himself to meet Angela's gaze despite the pain it caused. "I tried to wake you. You were so exhausted from working double shifts that you barely stirred. I convinced myself I would call once I landed. I would explain everything. We would figure out how to make it work from a distance. But you did not call," Angela said. A statement, not a question. "No. By the time I landed, the negotiation had intensified. Then there were integration challenges, crises that demanded immediate attention. Every time I thought about calling, I found another reason to delay." He heard how hollow it sounded. How pathetic. And he kept talking anyway, because the truth deserved to be spoken, even if it damned him. "Too much time passed. I told myself you were better off without me, that you had moved on, that reaching out would only cause more pain." "You told yourself," Angela repeated, and there was ice in her voice now. "You made that decision for both of us, without consulting me. You took away my agency, my voice, my right to know I was carrying your children." Yes. Bobby had no defense, no justification, nothing to offer except the naked admission of his failure. "I made choices that should have been ours to make together. I cannot undo that. I can only acknowledge it was wrong and try to be better now." Another long silence. Diana's expression remained hostile, but Angela's had shifted slightly. Not toward forgiveness, not toward warmth, but towards something that might have been tired acceptance. "One dinner," Angela said finally, "at my house. I will be present the entire time. Diana will be there as well. You can start to know them, and they can start to understand who you are." Relief flooded through Bobby, so powerful it was almost physical. "Thank you, Ersta." But Angela held up her hand, cutting him off. "If you commit to this and then disappear again, you will never get another opportunity. Not through lawyers or threats, because I will not allow my children to experience the abandonment I experienced. They will never know what it feels like to wait for someone who does not come. I will not disappear, Bobby said, the words carrying the weight of a vow. I moved back to Chicago permanently. I am establishing my company's headquarters here. I am not going anywhere. Actions, not words, Angela replied. I have learned to trust only what I can see. Then watch me. For as long as it takes, I will prove every day that I am here, that I am committed, that I understand what I threw away and am willing to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve another chance. The meeting ended shortly after. Details were arranged. A date was set for the dinner. Diana walked Bobby to the elevator, her expression making clear that she would happily push him down the shaft if given sufficient provocation. She loved you, Diana said, as they waited for the elevator doors to open. Completely, without reservation, and you destroyed her. I know. No, you do not know. You cannot possibly know what it was like, watching her fall apart and then put herself back together, piece by piece, while growing two human beings inside her body and trying to survive on nothing. You were not there for the panic attacks, the nights she could not stop crying, the fear that she would not be able to feed her children. Diana stepped closer, her voice dropping to something fierce and protective. Angela has forgiven you, mostly, because that is who she is. She had to forgive you to move forward. But I have not forgiven you, and I am watching you, Bobby Williams. One wrong move, one hint that you are not serious about this, and I will end you in ways that your billions cannot protect you from. The elevator doors opened. Bobby stepped inside and turned to face her. I deserve your anger, he said quietly. I deserve worse, but I am going to prove you wrong. Both of you. I am going to become someone worthy of those children. Diana's expression did not soften. We will see. The doors closed between them. 1 week later, Bobby stood on Angela's front porch, his hands full of carefully chosen gifts and his heart full of terror. The house was exactly what he would have expected if he had allowed himself to imagine Angela's life without him. A craftsman-style home in Lincoln Park. Warm colors. Well-maintained lawn. The kind of place where children could grow up feeling safe and loved. He rang the doorbell before he could talk himself out of it. The door opened, and Marcus stood there. 6 years old, already taking on the role of protector, his expression carrying the same assessing quality it had at the gala. You are the man from the party, Marcus said. The one Mama had to talk to. That is right. I am Bobby. I know who you are. The words carried weight beyond their simplicity. Marcus knew who Bobby was in the genetic sense, the absent father sense, the villain of the bedtime story sense. May I come in? Marcus considered this for a moment, then stepped aside. Mama said you could. The interior of the house was everything Bobby had expected and nothing he deserved to see. Family photos lined the hallways, documenting 6 years of life he had missed. Birthdays with homemade cakes, first days of school with tiny backpacks, holiday celebrations with Diana and other people Bobby did not recognize. Random moments deemed photo-worthy because someone had been present enough to capture them. Bobby had not been in any of those photos. He never would be. That history was written, and his absence was permanent. Maya appeared from around a corner, her sketchbook clutched to her chest like a shield. You came back, she said, sounding surprised. In Mama's story, you never come back. This is not a story, Bobby said gently, crouching down to her level. This is real life. And in real life, sometimes people make terrible mistakes and then try very hard to fix them. Maya considered this with the gravity of a philosopher. Can you fix being gone for my whole life? No, Bobby admitted, because lying to children about important things only taught them that adults could not be trusted. I cannot fix that. I can only try to be here now and for all the time that comes after. Angela appeared in the doorway behind her children. She wore casual clothes today, jeans and a soft sweater. She looked more like the woman Bobby remembered, and less like the CEO he had met at the gala. I brought gifts, Bobby said, standing and holding out the packages. But I want to be clear. I am not trying to buy your affection. Your mom and I agreed that presents should be meaningful, not excessive. He handed the first package to Marcus. The boy opened it carefully, revealing a book about famous architects throughout history. Marcus's eyes widened. Frank Lloyd Wright, he breathed, already flipping through the pages. And Zaha Hadid. And the first MP. Your mom told me you like buildings, Bobby said. That you are always drawing them. I thought you might like to learn about the people who designed real ones. This is the best book I have ever seen. The words were so genuine, so purely joyful, that Bobby felt tears threatening. He blinked them back and turned to Maya. Her package contained a professional quality sketch set with dozens of colored pencils, drawing pads, and art supplies. "These are real artist pencils," Maya said, her voice hushed with wonder. "Like professionals use." "Your dragons deserve professional supplies," Bobby said. "I heard you are very talented." Maya looked at him with an expression he could not quite read. "Who told you about my dragons?" "Diana mentioned them. She said you create entire kingdoms." "She talks to you about us?" "A little, so I could understand who you are before meeting you properly." Maya processed this, then nodded slowly. "That is actually smart. Research before engagement. That is what Mama always says. Your mom is very wise." "I know," Maya replied simply. "That is why she runs a whole foundation." Dinner was awkward at first, everyone trying too hard. Angela watching every interaction with hawk-like attention. Diana hovering in the kitchen, making enough noise to remind everyone she was present and paying attention. But children have a way of cutting through adult tension with their relentless presence. By the time the main course was finished, Marcus was explaining load-bearing walls to Bobby with the enthusiasm of a professor who had finally found an interested student. Maya was showing him her sketchbook, pointing out each dragon's name and history and the complex political situation of her painted kingdoms. "This is Queen Rosalind," Maya said seriously, indicating a regal purple dragon perched atop a mountain. "She rules everything. She used to have a king, but he went away, so she learned to do it herself." Bobby glanced at Angela and saw that she had caught the parallel too. Her expression was carefully neutral, but something in her eyes suggested the children's symbolic processing of their reality was not lost on her. "She sounds very powerful," Bobby said carefully, "and very brave." "She is," Maya confirmed. "She had to be. When the king left, everyone thought the kingdom would fall apart. But Queen Rosalind made it stronger instead. Now no one even remembers there was supposed to be a king." The words landed like stones in still water, their ripples spreading outward through the silence that followed. Bobby did not know what to say. How did one respond to a 6-year-old who had just articulated, through fairy tale metaphor, the entirety of their family's history? It was Marcus who broke the silence. "Dad." The word hung in the air. Bobby froze. Angela froze. Even Diana paused in her aggressive dish drying. Marcus looked up from the architecture book, his expression uncertain. "Is it okay if I call you that? Mom said I could choose what to call you, and technically you are my father, so..." He trailed off, suddenly seeming younger than his 6 years, vulnerable in a way his protective demeanor usually masked. "You can call me whatever feels right to you," Bobby managed, his voice rough with emotion he was struggling to contain. Dad is more than okay." Marcus nodded once, satisfied. "Okay, Dad, can you explain this part about cantilevers? The book says they extend horizontally without support, but that does not make sense to me." And just like that, the moment passed, transformed from weighted significance into ordinary father-son interaction about structural engineering. Bobby leaned over the book, pointing to the diagram. "It does seem impossible, does it not? But look here. The support is not visible because it is on the other end. The weight is balanced." "Oh," Marcus said, understanding dawning. "So it is like a seesaw." "Exactly like a seesaw. The building version." Angela watched this exchange with an expression Bobby had not seen before, something that might have been hope carefully disguised as skepticism. After the children were in bed, Bobby helped Angela clean up the kitchen, while Diana stood guard in the living room, pretending to watch television but clearly listening to every word. "They were wonderful," Bobby said, drying a dish Angela handed him. "You have raised incredible children." "I know," Angela replied, and there was no false modesty in the statement. Just the quiet pride of someone who had done impossible work. "They are the best thing in my life. Everything I have built, I built for them." Bobby set down the dish and turned to face her. "Angela, I know I have no right to ask for anything, but I need to know. Do you think you will ever be able to forgive me? Not for them, for yourself, for your own peace." Angela was quiet for a long moment, her hands still in the soapy water. "Forgiveness is not about deserving," she said finally. "It is about choosing to set down the weight so you can move forward. I have done a lot of work on forgiveness, Bobby. For myself, for my own peace, I had to find a way to let go of the rage." She turned to face him, water dripping from her hands. But that is different from trusting you. That is different from letting you back in. Those are not the same things, and conflating them would be a mistake. I understand, Bobby said. Then I will earn your trust, however long it takes. Angela studied his face as if searching for cracks in his sincerity. Actions, not words, she said finally. You keep promising things, but I have heard your promises before. Your promises did not mean much then, I know, but I'm not the same person I was 7 years ago. I have learned what matters. I have learned what I lost by not understanding that sooner. Diana appeared in the kitchen doorway, her expression suggesting the conversation had gone on long enough. It is getting late, she said pointedly. The children will be up early. Bobby took the hint. Thank you for tonight, he said to Angela, for giving me this chance. I will not waste it. See that you do not, Diana said before Angela could respond. Bobby showed himself out, pausing on the porch to look back at the house one more time. Through the window, he could see Angela and Diana talking. Angela's body language was tired, but not defeated. Diana's was protective, but not hostile. It was something. It was a beginning. And for the first time in 7 years, Bobby allowed himself to believe that beginnings were still possible. The weeks that followed that first dinner established a pattern that would define the next several months of all their lives. Bobby showed up, consistently, reliably, without excuses or exceptions. He called the twins every evening at 7:30, right before their bedtime routine began. At first, these calls were awkward. Stilted conversations about school and friends, and the things children talk about when they do not yet know how to talk to a stranger who shares their DNA. But children are remarkably adaptable, and Bobby was remarkably persistent. By the third week, Marcus was holding the phone up to show Bobby his latest architectural drawings, detailed sketches of buildings that existed only in his imagination, but followed structural principles that would have impressed actual engineers. See this part here? Marcus said during one call, pointing to a curved section of his design. I made the roof like a shell, like the Sydney Opera House, but I added supports underneath so it would not collapse. That is brilliant, Bobby said, and he meant it. The load distribution on something like that is incredibly complex. How did you figure it out? I read about it in the book you gave me, and then I watched some videos, and then I tried it myself. You taught yourself structural engineering from YouTube? Marcus shrugged, the casual gesture of a child who did not yet understand how extraordinary he was. It is not that hard. You just have to pay attention. Angela, listening from the doorway, felt something shift in her chest. Bobby was not just tolerating these conversations. He was engaged, asking follow-up questions, remembering details from previous calls, treating her 6-year-old's interests as worthy of serious adult attention. Maya's calls were different. She preferred to show rather than tell. She would hold up her latest paintings and explain the elaborate storylines behind each scene. The Purple Dragon Kingdom had expanded significantly since Bobby's arrival, incorporating new characters and conflicts that seemed to mirror her emotional processing. This is Sir Marcus, Maya explained during one call, showing Bobby a painting of a knight in silver armor. He protects the kingdom with his buildings. He builds walls that nothing can break through. And who is this? Bobby asked, pointing to another figure in the painting. A knight in darker armor, standing at the edge of the kingdom. That is the knight who left, Maya said matter-of-factly. He went away for a long time, but he came back. Did Queen Rosalind let him back into the kingdom? Maya considered this with the seriousness of a philosopher weighing eternal questions. She's thinking about it, Maya said finally. He has to prove himself first. He has to show he will not leave again. That seems fair, Bobby said quietly. Very fair. Angela turned away from the doorway before either of them could see the tears in her eyes. The first major test came 6 weeks after that initial dinner. Marcus had a little league game, his first ever. Angela had signed him up at his request, though she knew nothing about baseball and had no idea how to help him practice. Bobby learned about the game during one of their evening calls. You play baseball? Bobby asked, genuine surprise in his voice. I did not know that. I just started, Marcus admitted. I am not very good yet. Most of the other kids have been playing since they were little. A pause. Bobby calculating something. Would it be okay if I came to watch? Your game, I mean. If your mom says it is all right. Marcus's face lit up in a way Angela had rarely seen. Really? You would come to my game? I would love to, if that is okay. The question was directed at both Marcus and, through him, at Angela. She appreciated that Bobby was not making promises he could not keep or overstepping boundaries without permission. "I will ask Mom," Marcus said, "but I think she will say yes." Angela did say yes, but she also called Bobby privately afterward. "If you say you will be there, and then you do not show up, it will devastate him," she said without preamble. "He is already attached to the idea. If something comes up with work, if you get too busy, if you decide baseball is boring." "I will be there," Bobby interrupted. "Nothing will keep me away. You cannot know that. Things happen. Emergencies arise. Then I will handle emergencies from the bleachers." "Angela, I understand what is at stake. This is not a casual commitment. This is his first game, his first memory of his father watching him play. I'm not going to let that memory be disappointment." Angela wanted to believe him. She was also terrified to believe him. "We will see," she said finally. The game was on a Saturday afternoon at a park 3 miles from Angela's house. Bobby arrived 45 minutes early, claiming a spot in the bleachers where Marcus would be able to see him easily. Angela sat nearby but not next to him. Diana was on her other side. Maya was between them, her sketchbook open, already drawing the scene. "You are here," Angela said when Bobby sat down. "I said I would be. Saying and doing are different things. I know. That is why I am here." Marcus's team was called the Tigers. They wore orange jerseys that were slightly too big and baseball caps that kept sliding down over their eyes. Marcus played outfield, a position where he spent most of his time standing around waiting for something to happen. When it did happen, when a fly ball came sailing toward him in the 3rd inning, Marcus panicked. He stumbled backward, his glove outstretched, and the ball bounced off the edge of the leather and rolled away. His face crumpled. Even from the bleachers, Angela could see the devastation, the certainty that he had failed, that everyone was watching, that this was exactly the kind of moment that would define him forever. Bobby was on his feet before Angela could react. "Great effort, Marcus," he shouted across the field. "You almost had it. Shake it off, buddy. Next one is yours." Other parents looked at him, some with confusion, others with recognition. The dad who never misses a play. The dad who knows exactly what to say. Marcus looked up at the bleachers. His eyes found Bobby immediately, and something in his expression shifted, not from devastation to joy, but from devastation to determination. He nodded once at his father, then turned back to the field, his glove raised, ready for the next ball. It did not come that inning, but in the 5th inning, another fly ball arced toward Marcus's position. This time, he planted his feet. This time, he watched the ball all the way into his glove. This time, when he squeezed the leather closed, the ball stayed put. The cheer that went up from Bobby was loud enough to be heard across the entire park. "That is my son," Bobby shouted, completely unself-conscious. "That is my boy." Marcus's grin could have lit up a stadium. After the game, which the Tigers lost by 7 runs but which Marcus declared his best day ever, Bobby took everyone out for ice cream. Angela let him pay, though it went against her instincts. The children needed to see their father providing for them in small ways, building the habits that might someday become trust. "You were amazing out there," Bobby told Marcus as they sat in the ice cream shop, sticky fingers and chocolate-stained faces all around. "I dropped the first one," Marcus said, the memory still stinging. "Everyone drops balls sometimes. Professional players drop balls. What matters is not the mistake. What matters is what you do after the mistake. Is that true?" Bobby leaned forward, his expression serious. "It is the truest thing I know," he said. "I have made more mistakes than I can count. Big ones. The kind that change everything. But I am still here, trying to do better. That is all any of us can do." Marcus absorbed this with the gravity of someone who understood he was receiving important information. "Will you come to my next game?" "Every single one, as long as your mom allows it." Marcus looked at Angela. She hesitated only a moment before nodding. "Every single one," she confirmed. "But you have to practice during the week too. You cannot just show up on game day and expect to improve." "I will practice," Marcus promised. "Dad, will you practice with me?" The word came out so naturally. Dad, like it had always been there, waiting to be used. Bobby swallowed hard. "Any time," he said. "We will work on your catching and your throwing, and we will watch some videos together about technique." "Videos about baseball techniques? Why not?" You learned structural engineering from YouTube. Baseball cannot be that much harder." Marcus laughed, the first real laugh Bobby had heard from his son. Unguarded, joyful, the laugh of a child who was beginning to trust. Angela watched this exchange with an expression she could not quite control. Hope, fear, the desperate desire to believe that this could last, the equally desperate awareness that believing was dangerous. Diana leaned close to her. "He is good with them," Diana whispered. "I hate admitting it, but he is. One afternoon does not make a father, no. But it is a start. And he has shown up every time he said he would. Not once has he canceled or been late or made excuses." Angela said nothing, because Diana was right, and Angela did not know what to do with that information. The months continued to pass. Bobby attended every baseball game. He learned to braid Maya's hair, spending hours watching tutorial videos and practicing on a doll Diana had found at a thrift store. He showed up for parent-teacher conferences, taking notes like he was preparing for a board meeting. He learned the names of the twins' friends, their favorite foods, their fears about monsters under beds and social rejection, and all the things that occupied the minds of 6-year-olds. He became part of the fabric of their daily lives, not just a visitor, not just a special occasion presence, but a constant, a fixture, a reality they could count on. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, Angela's walls began to crack. She caught herself smiling at things Bobby said during their conversations after the children were asleep. She found herself looking forward to his visits, not just for the twins' sake, but for her own. His presence had become comfortable, familiar. It no longer carried the sharp edge of pain it once had. One evening, 4 months after that first meeting at the Gala, Bobby made an announcement that would change everything. They were having dinner at Angela's house. It had become tradition. Bobby cooking while Angela supervised homework. The twins setting the table with the seriousness of children who understood that family rituals mattered. "I have some news," Bobby said as they sat down to eat. Angela looked up from her plate. Something in his tone made her stomach tighten. "I have been restructuring my company," Bobby continued, "delegating more responsibilities to my executive team, working with my board to decentralize some of the decision-making that used to require my physical presence." "What does that mean?" Marcus asked, picking up on the significance even if he did not understand the business terms. Bobby looked at both children, then at Angela. "It means I have decided to open a Chicago office for Williams Enterprises. It will be smaller than our European headquarters, at least at first, but it will be real, permanent, and it means I can spend most of my time here instead of flying back and forth." Maya's fork clattered to her plate. "You will be here all the time?" 3 weeks out of every month, maybe more as we get things established." Both twins erupted into cheers. Marcus actually got out of his chair to hug Bobby, something he had never done before. Maya was bouncing in her seat, already planning all the things they could do together. Angela sat very still. Bobby noticed. "I wanted to tell you first," he said quietly, the children's excitement providing cover for an adult conversation. "Make sure you were comfortable with it. If this is too much, too fast, I can slow down the timeline. But I wanted you to know this is not a whim. I have been working on this for months." "You are moving here," Angela said. "Permanently. Yes, to be close to them, to be close to all of you." The clarification was deliberate. Angela heard it, felt it, did not know what to do with it. "That is a big change," she said finally. "It is the right change. I have been thinking about it since that first day in my office when you handed me a business card and told me I had only what you chose to give me." Bobby met her eyes directly. "My company can function without me micromanaging every decision. I built good systems, hired good people. I can be a leader without being an ever-present overseer." He paused. "But Marcus and Maya, they are only 6 once. I already missed their first 6 years. I am not willing to miss any more." Angela felt tears threatening and blinked them back fiercely. She would not cry in front of the children. She would not give Bobby the satisfaction of seeing how much his words affected her. "What about your life in New York?" she asked. "Europe, your friends, your routine, everything you have built over there?" "I did not have much of a life," Bobby admitted. "Just work. The few friends I had were really business associates who drifted away once I started traveling here so often. There is nothing tying me to Europe except inertia and habit. Here, I have my children. That is everything." It was exactly the right answer. Everything Angela would have wanted to hear if she had allowed herself to want anything from Bobby Williams. And it terrified her completely. Because if Bobby relocated to Chicago, if he became a permanent fixture in their daily lives, the careful distance she had maintained would become impossible. She would have to actually deal with her feelings instead of compartmentalizing them into monthly visits that she could control. When would this happen? She asked. I am looking at properties now, hoping to be settled within 2 months. You do not need my permission to move to Chicago. It is a free country. No, but I need you to be comfortable with it. I am not trying to force myself into your lives. I am trying to be available, present. There is a difference. Angela looked at the twins, who were watching this exchange with barely contained excitement. She looked at Bobby, who had spent 4 months proving himself reliable and consistent. She looked at the life she had built, and suddenly felt less like protection and more like limitation. Do it, she said. Move here. Be close to them. They deserve that. What she did not say, what she barely admitted to herself, was that maybe she deserved it too. That night, after Bobby left and the children were asleep, Angela sat in her home office staring at nothing. Diana found her there, 2 glasses of wine in hand. You are thinking very loudly, Diana said, settling into the chair across from Angela's desk. Want to share, or should I just guess? He is moving here, Angela said. Opening a Chicago office. He will be here 3 weeks out of every month. And how do you feel about that? I do not know. Angela took the wine glass Diana offered and stared into its depths. Terrified, hopeful, both simultaneously. He has been everything I hoped he would be as a father. Consistent, present, genuinely engaged. The twins adore him. This should be good news. But, Angela continued, it means I cannot keep him at arm's length anymore. I cannot pretend this is just about co-parenting when he is going to be a permanent fixture in our daily lives. I am going to have to actually examine what I feel about him, beyond just whether he is good for the children. And what do you feel about him? Diana asked gently. Angela was quiet for a long moment. I do not hate him anymore, she finally said. I did for a long time. The hatred was almost comfortable. It was simple. It made sense. But watching him with Marcus and Maya, seeing how he has changed, how he prioritizes them over everything else, it is hard to maintain hatred in the face of genuine transformation. That is not what I asked. I know what you asked. I am just not ready to answer it honestly. Because the answer scares you. Because the answer means I might have to risk something I swore I would never risk again. My heart, my trust, my belief that people can choose me and stay chosen. He broke all of that 7 years ago. What if he breaks it again? Diana leaned forward. What if he does not? The question hung in the air between them. What if he has actually become the man you needed him to be back then? Are you going to punish him forever for who he was? Or give him credit for who he has become? It was the question Angela had been avoiding for months. She had been so focused on protecting herself and the twins that she had not considered what she might be protecting herself from. Not just pain, but possibility. I do not know if I can do it, Angela whispered. I do not know if I can be that vulnerable again. You do not have to decide tonight, but eventually, you have to decide something. Living in this limbo, not moving forward, not letting go. That is just another kind of prison. Diana reached across the desk and took Angela's hand. You survived what he did to you. You built an empire from nothing. You raised 2 incredible children alone. You are strong enough to risk your heart again. If you choose to, the question is whether you are brave enough. The words settled over Angela like a challenge. She had thought surviving was the brave part. But maybe staying safe was actually the coward's choice. Maybe real courage meant risking pain for the possibility of something better than mere contentment. She did not have an answer that night, but for the first time in 7 years, she allowed herself to consider the question. 6 weeks later, Bobby closed on a house in Logan Square, a beautiful craftsman-style home, 15 minutes from Angela's place. He invited the whole family for a walkthrough before he moved in. This will be your room when you stay over, Bobby told Marcus, revealing a bedroom with built-in bookshelves and a desk positioned to catch the morning light. I thought you could use it for your architecture projects. Marcus's eyes went wide. This is mine? Really mine? Really yours. We will decorate it however you want. Maya's room was painted lavender, her favorite color. There was space for her growing dragon collection, and a window seat perfect for reading or drawing. "I love it," she breathed. "Can we stay tonight?" "Not tonight," Angela interjected gently. "Your dad does not even have furniture yet." But soon. The rest of the house tour revealed a home designed for the life Bobby was building. A home office where he would work. A modern kitchen that opened to a backyard perfect for children. A living room with space for family movie nights. It was not the house of a bachelor. It was the house of a father. After the twins ran outside to explore the yard, Angela and Bobby stood in the kitchen. The space between them felt charged with something neither was quite ready to name. "This is really happening," Angela said. "You are really here, in Chicago, building a life close to them. I told you I would. I know it took months to prove it, but I meant every word. They are my priority. This is where I need to be." Angela looked around the kitchen, imagined the twins eating breakfast here on weekend mornings, imagined herself, stopped imagining before she could go too far. "Can I ask you something?" she said, surprising herself with the question. "Anything. Why did you choose her? 7 years ago. Victoria. I have never understood it. We were good together. We had plans. And then she appeared, and suddenly none of it mattered. I need to understand what I was not." Bobby's face crumpled with old pain. "You were not anything except exactly who you needed to be. The problem was not you, Angela. It was me." He turned to face her fully, his expression raw. "I was a coward. You challenged me to be better, to be more authentic, to examine the parts of myself I had been avoiding. Victoria let me stay exactly as I was. She was comfortable, easy. And I chose easy over meaningful because I was too afraid to do the hard work of becoming someone worthy of you. And now I have done the work. Not for you. I do not have the right to expect anything from you. But for them, for myself, because I finally understood that easy is not the same as good. That comfort is not the same as connection. That the life I was living was hollow, no matter how successful it looked from the outside." Angela felt tears threatening again. 7 years of armor cracking. "I am scared," she admitted, "of letting you in, of trusting you with more than just co-parenting, of believing this version of you is real and permanent." "I am scared too," Bobby confessed. "Scared I will mess this up somehow. Scared I do not deserve the chance you have already given me. Scared that 6 years of proving myself will not be enough to overcome 6 minutes of betrayal." He stepped closer, carefully, asking permission with his body language before taking her hand. "But Angela, I am here. I moved my entire life to be close to our children. I restructured my company. I found a therapist. I learned how to be present instead of just productive. I did all of that whether you ever forgave me or not, because it was the right thing to do." He paused. "But if you are asking whether I would like more than just co-parenting, whether I would like the chance to show you I can be the partner you deserved back then, the answer is yes. Absolutely yes." Angela did not pull her hand away, but she did not move closer either. "I need time," she said finally. "More time to see if this stability holds. To trust that you are not going to wake up one day and decide Denver is boring and the twins are too much work and disappear back to Europe." "Take all the time you need," Bobby said. "I am not going anywhere." That became his refrain over the next 6 months. "I am not going anywhere." He said it when work crises arose that would have once demanded his immediate attention overseas. He said it when the twins got sick and he canceled important meetings to bring them soup. He said it when Angela's foundation had a major fundraising gala and Bobby showed up as her date, fielding questions about their relationship with grace and discretion. "I am not going anywhere." And slowly, Angela began to believe him. They started dating, carefully, tentatively, dinner after the kids were asleep, long conversations about who they had become in the years apart, shared laughter that felt like remembering and discovering at the same time. Angela learned that Bobby saw a therapist every week, that he had done intensive work on understanding why he ran from commitment, why he had been willing to sacrifice love for success, why he had convinced himself that distance was kindness. Bobby learned that Angela still had nightmares sometimes, that the fear of abandonment had not disappeared just because she had built a successful life, that her strength was real, but so was her vulnerability, and she needed someone who could hold both. The twins adjusted to having 2 parents with remarkable ease. They started calling Bobby's house the other house without any sense of disruption. They developed rituals, Sunday pancakes at Dad's place, Wednesday night dinners at Mom's. The elaborate fantasy kingdoms Maya painted now included 2 thrones instead of 1. 6 months after Bobby's move to Chicago, Angela allowed herself to imagine a future. Maybe not marriage, not yet, but partnership. Genuine partnership. The kind she had dreamed of 7 years ago before everything fell apart. Maybe contentment was not the ceiling. Maybe happiness was possible after all. Before we continue with what happens next, before I show you the storm that will test everything Bobby claims to have become, I need to pause and speak directly to you. We are at a turning point in this story. Angela, who swore she would never trust again, is beginning to open her heart. Bobby, who abandoned everything for ambition, has rebuilt himself around what actually matters. The twins are thriving with 2 parents present. It looks like a happy ending is on the horizon. But here is what I have learned from telling stories. The moment things seem perfect is exactly when the storm hits. What happens next will test everything. It will force Angela to decide if transformation is real or just a longer form of performance. It will require Bobby to prove in the most dramatic way possible that he is not the man who left 7 years ago. Before we continue, I need you to hit that like button if you believe people can change. Comment below. Tell me whether you think Bobby is truly transformed or whether Angela is setting herself up for another heartbreak. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that second chances are possible but not guaranteed. Your engagement helps this story reach others who need it. And it tells me that you are invested in seeing how this ends. Now let us see what happens when the past comes calling. It was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon when Bobby's past walked through the doors of the Rise Foundation. He was in the lobby, waiting to take Angela to lunch. A standing date they had established over the past few months. Something normal, routine, the kind of ordinary that Bobby had learned to treasure. He did not notice her at first. His attention was on his phone, reviewing some documents that required his signature. Then a voice he had not heard in 4 years cut through the ambient noise. Bobby Williams, I heard rumors you had come back to Chicago, but I did not believe them until now. He looked up, and his blood went cold. Victoria Wells stood in front of him, elegant as ever, polished as ever, her smile carrying that particular sharpness that had once seemed sophisticated and now revealed itself as predatory. Victoria. The name came out flat, unwelcoming. Is that any way to greet an old friend? Victoria stepped closer, her perfume overwhelming in the small space. An old partner? What are you doing here? Business, darling. What else? I am in Chicago for a conference. Imagine my surprise when I learned you had practically relocated here. Permanently. For a woman. She said the last word like it was something distasteful. Not just a woman, Bobby said carefully. My children. My family. Victoria laughed. The sound was light and cutting. Family. Bobby Williams talking about family. The same Bobby Williams who left a pregnant girlfriend with $50 because business could not wait. Bobby's jaw tightened. He had spent years in therapy processing his guilt. Hearing it weaponized by the person who had encouraged his worst impulses was almost more than he could bear. I am not that person anymore. People do not change, Victoria said with the confidence of someone who had never tried. They just get better at pretending. She pulled out her phone, scrolled to something, and held it up for him to see. Speaking of pretending, I assume you have not seen the latest from our European division. The integration is falling apart. Your hand-picked leadership team is imploding. Stock is down 18% in the last month. Bobby looked at the screen. The numbers were worse than he had feared. He had been monitoring from a distance, trusting his team to handle things. Clearly, that trust had been misplaced. This requires your attention, Victoria continued, her voice shifting into something almost sympathetic. In-person attention. The board is panicking. Investors are threatening to pull out. If you do not get on a plane in the next 48 hours, you might lose everything you built. Everything I built does not matter as much as what I am building here. Oh, Bobby. Victoria smiled. Always so dramatic. It is just a few weeks, a month at most. Handle the crisis. Stabilize the company. Then come back to your little family. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to something intimate. Unless you are afraid. Afraid that once you leave, you will not want to come back. Afraid that the old Bobby is still in there somewhere, waiting to emerge the moment he gets a taste of real power again. Bobby opened his mouth to respond, but a voice from behind him cut through the conversation. Is everything okay here? Angela stood in the doorway of the lobby, her expression carefully neutral. But Bobby could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes moved from him to Victoria and back again. "Fine," Bobby said quickly. Victoria was just leaving. "Actually," Victoria said, extending her hand toward Angela with the grace of someone who turned manipulation into an art form, "I was just meeting the famous Angela Johnson. I have heard so much about you. The woman who tamed Bobby Williams. Remarkable accomplishment." Angela did not take her hand. "And you are Victoria Wells, Bobby's former business partner and friend." The emphasis on friend was deliberate, suggestive, designed to plant seeds of doubt. "Victoria," Bobby said firmly, "you need to leave." "I am just trying to help," Victoria said, her wounded tone almost convincing. "The company is in crisis. The company you built from nothing. The company that employed thousands of people who are about to lose their jobs because you were too busy playing house to deal with reality." She turned to Angela. "You understand, surely. Business does not wait. It does not care about bedtime stories and Little League games. It demands everything. That is why Bobby left you the first time. That is why he will leave you again. Because in the end, he will always choose the empire over the family." Angela's expression did not change, but Bobby saw something in her eyes. Not doubt exactly, but fear. The fear of someone who had heard promises before and watched them crumble. "I think you should leave now," Angela said quietly. Victoria smiled. "I will be at the Langham Hotel through Thursday," she said, directing this at Bobby. "The plane leaves Friday morning. Your seat is booked. All you have to do is show up." She walked out, leaving silence in her wake. "Angela," Bobby began. "Not here." Angela's voice was controlled. "Tight. Come to my office." They walked the hallways of the Rise Foundation in silence. Every staff member they passed sensed something was wrong. The air between them crackled with tension. In Angela's office, she closed the door and turned to face him. "Who is she really?" "Victoria Wells. She was my business partner in Europe. And for about 18 months after I first relocated, she was more than that." Angela absorbed this. "She was the one you left me for. I did not leave you for her. I left you for the company. She came after. That distinction does not matter as much as you think it does," Angela said. "The point is that she was there. During the years you should have been here. She knew you during the time I was giving birth alone and learning to survive alone and building everything you see around you alone. Yes, and now she is back, telling you the company is failing, telling you you need to leave, telling you." She stopped, collected herself. "It is exactly like before, Bobby. The exact same choice. The company or your family, Europe or Chicago, the empire or us." Bobby moved toward her, but she held up a hand to stop him. "What are you going to do?" "I am going to stay," Bobby said immediately. "The company will survive or it will not, but I am not leaving. The European division is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. People's jobs, your legacy, none of that matters more than Marcus and Maya, than you." Angela studied his face, looking for cracks, looking for signs that he was already calculating, already weighing, already preparing his exit. She wanted to believe him. She was also terrified of believing him. "I need to think," she said finally. "And I need you to think, really think, about what you would regret more, losing the company or losing us. I already know the answer. Then prove it, not with words, with actions. You have until Friday to decide." Bobby went home that night and stared at the walls of the house he had bought to be close to his children. Victoria's words echoed in his mind. People do not change. They just get better at pretending. Was that true? Had he really changed? Or was he just performing a role that had become convenient? The company was in trouble, real trouble. People would lose their jobs. Families would suffer. The legacy he had spent 7 years building would crumble. But if he left, even for a few weeks, even with every intention of coming back, he remembered Angela's face 7 years ago, the sleeping form he had walked away from, the note he had left, the $50. He remembered Marcus asking if he was going away again. He remembered Maya's painting of the knight who left and forgot to come back. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. "The board is meeting tomorrow. They need you there. Stop pretending to be something you are not, Bobby. You are a builder of empires." You are not a family man. Come home." Bobby stared at the message for a long time. Then he deleted it. The next evening, Bobby showed up at Angela's house for dinner as usual. The twins were subdued. They had picked up on the tension between the adults, even if they did not understand its source. Maya had been painting all afternoon. When Bobby asked to see her latest work, she hesitated before showing him. It was the Purple Dragon Kingdom. But something had changed. The knight who had returned was standing at the edge of the kingdom again. His horse was saddled. His back was to the castle. "Maya," Bobby said softly, "what is happening in this picture?" "The knight is thinking," Maya said quietly, "about whether to stay or go." "And what does Queen Rosalind think?" Maya looked at Bobby with eyes that saw too much. "She is scared," Maya admitted, "because the last time the knight left, he did not come back for a very long time. She does not want to be alone again." Bobby set down the painting and knelt in front of his daughter. "Maya, look at me." She looked. "I am not going anywhere. Not for a few weeks. Not for a month. Not ever. Do you understand?" But the lady said, "I do not care what the lady said. The lady does not know me. Not the me I am now. She knew the me I was before. The me who made terrible mistakes. That me is gone. People do not change," Maya said, and the words sounded rehearsed. She was repeating something she had heard. "Mama says people show you who they are, and you should believe them. Your mama is very smart, and she is right. People show you who they are. I've been showing you for almost a year now. Every game, every dinner, every bedtime story, every promise I made and kept. That is who I am now, and I will keep showing you until you believe it." Marcus appeared in the doorway. He had been listening. "The lady came back," he said. "The one from the foundation. She is talking to Mom in the kitchen." Bobby's blood went cold. He stood and walked toward the kitchen, his heart pounding. Victoria's voice carried through the partially open door. "You cannot possibly think he has changed. The man I knew would never have chosen domesticity over success. He is playing a role, waiting for the right moment to shed it." Angela's voice was steady. "Why are you here? What do you actually want?" "I want what is best for Bobby. And what is best for Bobby is not this small life, these ordinary concerns. He was built for bigger things, and I suppose you think you know what those bigger things are. I know he was happier when he was building something that mattered." Bobby pushed the door open. Both women turned. "Victoria," Bobby said, "I am only going to say this once. Leave." "Bobby, no." He stepped into the kitchen, positioning himself between Victoria and Angela. "You do not get to decide what makes me happy. You do not get to define what matters. You spent 18 months convincing me that ambition was the only thing worth pursuing, and I was miserable the entire time. You were successful. Success without meaning is just expensive emptiness." He turned to Angela. "I made my choice. I am calling the board tonight. I am handing over the European operations to my second-in-command permanently. If the division fails, it fails. But I will not sacrifice another moment with my children for something that can be measured in stock prices." Victoria laughed bitterly. "You will regret this." "Maybe, but I will regret it here, with my family, not on a plane flying toward a life that never made me whole." He looked at Victoria directly. "You need to leave, and do not contact me again. Whatever we were is over. It has been over for years. I just did not have the courage to make it official until now." Victoria's expression shifted, the mask of concern falling away to reveal something colder, something calculating. "Fine," she said. "Destroy everything you built. See if I care." She walked out without another word. The silence that followed was heavy but not hostile. Angela was looking at Bobby with an expression he could not quite read. "You just gave up hundreds of millions of dollars," she said quietly. "For us, I gave up something that was already costing me everything that matters. That is not a sacrifice. That is a correction." Angela moved toward him, slowly, like someone approaching something precious and fragile. "You stayed," she said, and her voice cracked on the word. "You actually stayed. I told you I would. I am not going anywhere. Not now. Not ever." She was in his arms then, not romantically, not passionately, just holding on, the way someone holds on when they have finally stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. "I believe you," she whispered into his chest. I finally believe you. Marcus and Maya appeared in the doorway. They had been watching. Is the mean lady gone? Maya asked. Yes, Bobby confirmed. She is gone. Forever? Forever. The children rushed into the embrace, making it a group hug in the kitchen of the house Angela had built alone. They stood there for a long moment, not speaking, just being. 4 people who had found their way back to each other through the wreckage of years and mistakes and the slow, patient work of proving that change was possible. This is not how I thought this would end, Angela murmured into the chaos of arms and warmth. How did you think it would end? I thought you would leave. I thought I would be right about you. Bobby pulled back just enough to look at her. I am glad you were wrong. Me too. The ending did not come with fireworks or grand gestures. It came with ordinary evenings. Sunday pancakes that became Saturday pancakes because someone decided they preferred them that way. Report cards celebrated at restaurants where the servers knew their names. Holidays blending families together until the seams stopped being visible. 1 year after that first confrontation at the Gala, Angela and Bobby stood together at a Rise Foundation event. The twins were charming donors across the room, Maya explaining her dragon kingdoms while Marcus discussed load-bearing walls with anyone who would listen. We did okay, Bobby said quietly. Did we not? We did better than okay, Angela replied. We did real. Messy and imperfect and absolutely real. She looked at him. This man who had destroyed her world and then spent a year helping her rebuild it. I love you, she said. Again. Still, earned through every difficult moment and every choice to stay. I love you too, Bobby replied, and I will spend the rest of my life proving it. Across the room, Maya held up her latest painting for a group of admirers. The purple dragon kingdom had expanded again. 2 thrones now, a queen and a knight who had earned his place. And in the corner, 2 small dragons learning to fly. When asked what the painting was called, Maya answered without hesitation, The Knight Who Stayed. And that was the only title that mattered. If this story has moved you, if you believe in the power of transformation and the courage it takes to trust again, I need you to do something for me right now. Hit that like button, not because I asked you to, but because this story deserves to be seen by everyone who has ever wondered if second chances are real. Subscribe to this channel, because this is what we do here. We tell the truth about love and loss and the messy work of becoming better than we were. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that their rock bottom might just be the foundation for something extraordinary. And drop a comment below. Tell me your story. Tell me about the person who stayed when everyone expected them to leave. Or tell me about the time you had to decide whether to trust someone who had broken your trust before. Your engagement is not just numbers to me. It is proof that stories like this matter. That the message of redemption and consistent effort and choosing love over easy escape resonates with real people living real lives. Thank you for watching. Thank you for staying until the end. This is Mr. Dawson's Stories, and I will see you in the next one.